You know what it is. That's right. It's time to talk money with your money nerd and financial coach. Now, tighten those purse strings and open those ears. It's the Money Talk with Tiff podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Money Talk with Tiff podcast. So today I have two guests on the line. So first, let me introduce you to Jason Carriero. Now, Jason, we go way back.
To the sandbox.
Jason, right, literally to the sandbox. Like we were in daycare together growing up. And then his friend T. Jones is also on the line, and they are both English and second language teachers in China and other countries. You know, they just move around, but they're expats. And I wanted to bring them on the show because this is something that we normally don't hear about, or if we do, we don't understand how it works, you know, how you can even get into it. And so I wanted to bring them on just to share their experience. So thank you so much, Jason and T, for being on the show today.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So let's just hop right in. So, you know, we talked quite a bit before I hit record, and I was like, dang, we should have captured all of this. But but let's just get started at the very, very beginning. So, you know, after you graduated and everything, like what made you decide, okay, I want to live in another country and do this versus staying in
You want to
the
go
US?
first, Jason? You want me?
Go ahead, T.
Okay. So
You
for
can go
me,
first.
I had a different kind of role because I'm way older than Jason. Well, 7
Not
years,
way.
that's a lot.
Okay.
So, like me, I was, went to grad school. I was working in the corporate world, and I hated it. I'm like, there got to be more than life than this. Like, I've always wanted to travel, but I was like, dang, like, I can't afford to travel. That was my mindset was because, you know, living in America, it's just like you can't think about living somewhere else. It's just really hard to think about living somewhere else because you're always in the rat race trying to, you know, come up, make money, and you always been taught like you go to school, you get a good job, you just work that job, and until you retire type stuff. And that's the mindset I had, and that's what I was doing. I was working in the corporate world, had a really good job, making really good money, but I was miserable. When I tell you miserable, like. And I'm not a big crier. I've been going home boo-hooing because I hated my life. Like I was like, there gotta be more to life than this. And one day, like my sister, she works on a cruise ship, and I was jealous because she was traveling all over the world. She loved her job, and I was just like, dang. And then she was on break one day, and she was over my apartment. She was like, "What's wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with you?" She's like, "You just so sad all the time." I was like, "I don't know, sis. Like, I just don't like my life." And she was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I ain't suicidal. I'm just saying, like, this right here ain't mathing like it's supposed to. like I'm working my ass off, and I ain't got nothing to show for it. Yeah, I got a nice apartment and stuff, like nice condo and all that stuff. But I'm like, that's material stuff. I don't feel fulfilled." And she was like, "What do you want to do?" I was like, "I want to travel." She was like, "Well, nigga, travel." Well, can we say nigga? I didn't even like. Sorry.
Let's be honest.
She was just like, "You need to just, if you want to do it, do it." I'm like, "I'm not like you. I don't know." She was like, "Stop being scary. I ain't never known you to be scary before." Like, 'cause they call me their little big brother. She was like, "If you want to do it, do it." So I was like, F it. 'Cause I was always watching YouTube videos about traveling, and then I just started researching. I was like, how can I literally Google, how can I travel, and make money? And I was just looking at different ideas. And I have friends who taught in Korea through the EPIC program. But I researched that, but I didn't really like that program because you don't get to pick where you live. You don't get to pick your school. So they can put you
Right.
on a mountaintop, and that's where you gotta go. I was like, no, I'm not about that life. Like,
You already live in a
or they
mountaintop
put
in
you in a
Missouri,
village,
so it's
and I was
like,
like, no, I ain't
nah.
about that life. So and I was like, all right, maybe I'll do the Peace Corps. So I got everything together for the Peace Corps. That fell through. I'm just like, that one. And so I started researching some more, and then one of my workers, he had just came from teaching abroad. And I was like, huh, I ain't never thought about that. So I started, Googling my best friend. I started Googling about teaching abroad. And then I started watching YouTube videos. And I was just like, all right, if I teach abroad, I got really interested. I'm like, where can I go that I can still travel and teach and make money? And I started Googling, doing more research. That's another, do your research. Just don't be up and going places. Do mad
Yeah.
research. Like, when I got to China, you could tell people who didn't research because they were surprised about, I knew everything I was going to, like, when I actually got to China, I'll get to that. So I started researching, and I was like, all right, it's either between Taiwan, Japan, or China, or Vietnam. So it was those. I got it down to 4 countries. I was like, nah, Taiwan, you got to work too much. I ain't about that life. Japan pays the most, but you got to be working 18 hours a day. No, I'm not about to do that. And then I was like, well,
Nope.
China, cause I'm like, China, but it's China though. I'm like, but you don't know nothing about China, so why are you so scared? So I started researching China, and their salaries were just on par with Japan, and you didn't have to work that much. Like, you didn't have to work a lot of hours. You got a whole month and a half, almost 2 months off for a holiday break. Then you got another 3 months off for summer. I'm like, well, shit, that's 5 months, and I could just travel. I'm like, that's where I'm going right there. And so I was like, all right. So I decided to go to China, and I told some of my family members. That's another thing, a mistake I made. I told people who didn't get my vision, and they were like discouraging me because they didn't understand what I was trying to do. They was like, well, you got this good job, and I didn't tell you this. Before I quit my job, hold on, when I decided to go to China, I was like, all right, I'm going to have to quit this job because ain't no way I can prepare to go to this place and still work full time. It can't happen. I was like, all right, I'm gonna quit my job. So I wrote my resignation letter. The day I was going to turn it in, I got a promotion. And they threw some money at me. I was like, of course, and laughed. And I was like, damn,
How
yeah,
you
what
gonna
I'm gonna
act?
do?
What
I
you
was like,
gonna
I'm about to
do?
follow my dreams, or
Right,
I'm gonna
right.
chase this money, this rat race money. I was like, F it, I'm gonna follow my dreams. My parents flipped out. My dad was like, that's the money, that kind of job and that kind of money, you can set your whole family up for the rest of your life. I'm like, but Dad, I didn't want to say, I don't want to be like, y'all just be working and don't do nothing. But, I mean, it was the truth though. My parents worked their ass off, and yeah, it's just like, but y'all ain't done nothing, like really done something significant. And I'm just like, that, I don't want that to be me. And so I was just like, F it. I'm just gonna do it. So I called my sister. I sold everything I had, and I moved. I called my sister and asked could I move in with her until I figured this stuff out. Cause I really, I had a plan in my head, but I still needed to get it together, and I needed some time. I was like, "Can I move in with you?" And she lived in Nashville, so she was like, "Sure." Moving with her, and then that's when I got my plan together. Like I really got it together. And I started researching, looking at jobs and like what city I wanted to go to. My sister's husband, he's worked in China with his job, and he was like, cause I wanted to go to Beijing or Shanghai. He was like, no, don't go to those places because they're too expensive. I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, yeah, it's cheap in American money, but don't go to that. He was like, there's this place called Shenzhen. Check into that because that's the next up and coming city. And so I was just like, you don't know what they're talking about. Let me just Google this place. And I was just like, all right. I mean, it's by the sea, next to Hong Kong. It's like it's booming right now. I was like, all right, I'm gonna try. I'm just gonna see what jobs are available in Shenzhen. Looked it up. It was mad, thousands of jobs available for teaching, and I was just like, cool. So I applied to a couple places. As soon as the next day, I started getting hits. Just hits and hits and hits and hits. And I was like, oh shit, this is real now. This getting real. Like,
Well, okay, hold on. Let me stop you there because I want to get
okay.
into Jason's, like how he
Yeah.
got on this track, and then I have questions. I have so many
Okay.
questions.
I'll keep
All
it.
right, Jason.
I'll give you the abridged version. So I've always wanted to live abroad, but I didn't know how I was going to fund this dream. So I graduated college. I was working with children. So I wanted to teach as well, but I didn't know this was going to be abroad. I thought this was going to be in America. Like I have an English degree, but then I was like, English teachers, they're not really getting hired as much as math teachers or science teachers in New York. So I was like, where can I go that they need English teachers outside of America? So that was my thinking. And I had also, at the same time, I had also hit this like ceiling, this like glass ceiling in America, period. Like I've never lived outside of New York. I've traveled. I went to school in West Africa, but that was like my first taste outside of America, and that was in college in 2012. So when I hit this ceiling, I was like, I gotta get out of here. So like T, I tried joining the Peace Corps because I was like, this is reputable. This will look great on my resume. I did a tour in Peace Corps. You can get a job almost anywhere after that when it comes to like education or
And Peace Corps
politics
pays for
even.
your student loans.
So
Part of it. Not anymore, but
not anymore.
Trump
Trump
got rid of that
got
shit.
rid of that. Trump got rid of that. And and when I left in 2017, the same time I met T, Trump was president. I was like, I gotta get out of here. So I did more research. So for me, I read maps for fun. Like I'm constantly looking at maps
He
all
do
the time.
read maps.
If I'm planning on traveling someplace, I look at maps. I look at maps all the time. I look at maps of the country, of the city, of where we're gonna be staying, and look around there because we plan. Like T and I have traveled all over Southeast Asia. We plan, but it's a rough sketch because if we find out something to do that wasn't necessarily online or it's like something that you figure out when you get to the city, we leave it open to interpretation. So I did research and I found out that Shenzhen is near Hong Kong. International flights are cheaper outside of Hong Kong than they are in mainland China. Shenzhen is mainland China. Hong Kong is a separate but connected entity to China. It is China. Hong Kong is China, but it's a different municipality. They have different rules and laws there. So I did my research. So with Peace Corps fell through, but I was doing this without God in mind. When it came to China, I prayed about the whole thing. And it's just like things that T was talking about how like, we met people here who were stumbling over these like hurdles. We were walking over them. We were walking over them and they weren't issues that we had to deal with. Like people came ill prepared. They came with no money. How'd you come here with only $500? No. Like I saved up about 3,000 US dollars before I came to China, and that lasted me 2 months. And I didn't have to touch a whole check, two checks, because I learned that you're not getting paid your first month in China. Yes, you're working, but you have to work that whole month because you only get paid once a month, and usually in the beginning of the month or like the 10th, the latest of a month. So you have to plan for that. So planning is important. If you don't have a sound plan, then holes will be poked in that plan. And you don't want that to happen. Like you're making your foundation out of sand as a result. So T and I, we make sure that we plan everything.
It don't have to be like an
And like I
exact
said,
plan,
there's
but like
some
Jason
great
said
things
earlier,
that can
like a
happen.
rough plan. Like have something in your mind that you
Have something right. And that's another thing. Being in China, we are our own businesses. Like you are your own business. If you are a foreign
you're an
expat in
independent
China and you're
contractor.
teaching here and making money here, got a visa, you're an independent contractor. You're your own business, and how you market yourself says a lot about you and and your intentions. So it worked out. It's been
Yeah.
working
And I
out
don't
so
mean to cut you
far.
off, Jason.
Okay,
Like when he was
so
going off the independent contractor,
No problem.
every teacher gets paid a different salary. There's no teacher who gets paid the same. Every contract is in. Yeah, everything's
Everything is
negotiable. Every
negotiable.
contract is different. If you don't know how to negotiate a contract or fight for money, they will give you the bare minimum. And I'm telling you, some of these people, like teachers talking about the contract, I'm just like, what you did? Why?
The teachers before us, so we came in
The
2017, the teachers before
worst
us were getting
contracts
half
I've
of what we got
ever
paid. I was
seen.
like,
They got
damn.
paid like $1,000 US. Yeah, they took care of your housing, but they already give you a housing stipend. They had the worst contracts. I'm like, why would y'all sign that? Well, we didn't want to argue. What? This is your money. Why not?
Why not?
So
This is
if you
business.
don't fight for your money, they just
Mm,
gonna give you the
mm.
bare minimum, and if you're happy with that, that's fine. But
And some of these teachers were certified. Some of these people were actually teachers. Like you were a teacher in America, you were a
mm,
teacher in your home country, and you're selling for less? No.
So that brings me to my first question. So if people are listening, they're interested in doing this,
no,
you don't have
no,
to have a teaching degree to do this. So,
yeah.
but you have to have a degree,
You have to
or you
have
don't
a
even have to have
degree,
a degree.
and
Okay.
to make yourself more marketable, you need a
hmm
TEFL or a TESOL. A TEFL, it's basically like a teaching certification. I got mine
Yeah,
online, and so did
it's
T.
teaching English as a second language. So
Gotcha.
it's not a hard program. If you can I bust through mine in like 3 weeks, like because you have to take these tests and they want to see how you because you're teaching
Four
English,
months
so
for
they
me.
want to know, do you really kind of know English? You ain't really got to know English that well. You just got to kind of understand the concepts of English, like and
But that's the thing. There are
Mm.
a lot of teachers here in Shenzhen who just because you speak English doesn't mean you can teach English, and that's why taking a TEFL course or a TESOL course is
yeah.
like useful. It's useful. It'll help you out in the
So
long
for
run, and they
me,
don't
I taught
expire.
actually for about 5 years, and I
Mm.
hated it teaching in America. So that's when I went back to grad school, and then that's when I went to the corporate world. I was like, this teaching stuff is for the birds. It ain't for me, and I didn't think I was gonna ever teach again. Like, but with this, like Jason said, you have to learn how. Like in China, it's a dog eat dog world, especially in the ESL industry. Um, English second language in ESL industry, it's every man for themselves. Like you can get taken advantage of really easily if you don't do your due diligence
Hmm.
beforehand, and or speak up for yourself. Like when you go into these contract negotiations, they
Yeah.
give you a salary. That doesn't mean that's the salary you have to accept, and people just accept that salary. Like if you're
Mm.
worth more, like okay, I'll say this: there are three different types of educations and three different type of schools you can work in China, and they all pay differently. They all have different hours. You have to
Hmm.
pick what's best for you. The first one is what you call training centers. Training centers, they're not for
Training
me, but they
center.
for somebody because there's lots of training centers. Training centers usually are like before, after school type programs. Like, the kids go to school and after school they'll go to these training centers and to get more English learning. You work at night, so you work from 2 p.m. or sometimes 3 p.m. to like 9 o'clock at night. That ain't for me. And usually, and you
Yeah.
have to work every weekend because that's the most busiest time. It's the weekend, so you might be off on Monday and Tuesday, work a couple of hours on Wednesday, a couple hours, like 3 hours on Wednesday, 3 hours on Thursday, you know, maybe 4 hours on Friday. But on Saturday and Sunday, you're working like 12 hours straight. Like no weekends
Yep.
off because that's the
Hmm.
busiest time. And I was like, that's not for me. The second kind is public school. Public schools are the easiest jobs. Like you usually, with public schools, you'll usually work for an
Yep.
education company, which education companies are good and they're bad. The good part is they take care of everything for you. They give you, they help you with your
The
visa. They help
visas.
you find an apartment. They help you get phone plans. They help you set up everything. They they take care of pretty much every day. They help you with your flights and everything. But with all that help, it's a cost. They take a large percentage of your salary.
They're
A
also
large,
they
like,
also they also keep in
hmm
contact with the education bureaus in China. So in Shenzhen, like there are 9 districts, and each district has their own education bureau. So I teach in Bao'an, so we have to talk to and
it's like
listen
school
to the
districts.
Bao'an Education
hmm
Bureau. So they have different rules. That's a district, right?
Mm.
They have their own rules. We have to have meetings, monthly meetings, and stuff like that. But it's
Through
all
the
set
education
up through
company.
our
And
companies.
then there's the international school route. That is the most lucrative, but the hardest to get a job in.
Yeah,
International schools, they prefer you to have a
yeah,
teaching degree or not a really degree, but a license. But
yep.
you can play the game. You can get a substitute license in America and that will still be considered a teaching license. You got to think. They just say you need to have a teaching license. They didn't say it has to be like a full-time teaching license. Because that's how I got into
Right.
international school. My teaching certificate had expired like a long time ago. So I just got a substitute teaching license from my state. And I was like, I showed them I had a teaching license. They didn't care if it was a substitute or not. They know you have to have certain stipulations even to get this. So they was like, cool, that's all you need. And I ended up getting a job in an international school. And that is,
So
that's where the money is. But you gonna work for it. I ain't gonna lie. You are working.
You working. I worked at an international
mm,
school. 2 years ago, I worked at an international school, and I was there at seven
But
thirty
you
in the morning. I didn't leave until 7 o'clock at
but you
night
also,
every day,
you also
except for the
so
making
weekends.
it's
six,
like
seven
12
thousand dollars a
hour.
month. So yeah, you making
Yeah, I
money.
was making money.
Yeah.
I wasn't
And
mad about that, but I was tired.
you're making a
I was
salary plus
tired.
they give you a housing stipend, so you ain't got no bills. You don't really have any bills unless you create them. You know, um,
Bills are cheap here, though. Like your utilities, like you shouldn't be. Oh, so like electricity here in my apartment right now, I'm paying
or
30 US
less.
dollars a month
Wow.
or
And see, that
less.
was my next question. So, okay,
hmm
let's say somebody gets a job at the international school. They're making six,
Wait. If you had
7,000
a
US
current
dollars a
teaching
month,
license, you can
right?
make up to 10,000 plus a month.
That's how much Eric,
Yeah,
our
she
friend,
makes
is
about
making in
$12,000
Shanghai.
a month. You got money.
What? Okay, so you making, okay, so let's
Tiffany's about to move
say,
to China.
right, I'm like, hold on. So, because I need to get all the details. So, so if you making, let's say 10 to 12, let's say 6 to 12,000 a month, because that's
hmm
like typical. So people
Yeah.
usually fall within there if you at an international school,
Yes.
right? Okay.
No,
But
you
then
do.
so you don't have
Well,
rent or mortgage because
okay.
they already give
So
you a house.
it's kind of
Okay.
weird. It depends on how your school set up. Some schools pay your salary and your housing different. So they will say, yeah. So they will,
Separately,
because
based on
you
taxes.
get taxed for your salary, but they don't
Mm,
want you to have your housing tax either. So they'll pay you a separate. But some schools add it all together. Was like, this is your lump sum salary. Like most international schools, you
I
don't get a
see.
housing stipend because it's included in your salary. That's why it's so large. Um,
Gotcha.
So the more you get paid,
Gotcha. But how much?
the more you get paid in
Go ahead.
China, the higher you are taxed. That's for anyone. That's not the same in America. That's
Gotcha.
not the
So,
same in America. The more you're paid in China, the higher you are taxed. But, you know,
so how much? So how
okay, so
much is like
yeah,
your
that's
living
different
expenses?
for
So, for
every. Okay,
instance,
a lot of teachers come to China and go goddamn broke because they be trying to ball out because they like, I'm
so T and I lived together. We lived together. So I got to see how his expenses worked. We worked well together when it came to living because we have the same idea. We would go food shopping every month and we would spend like between the two of us like 1,500 RMB. RMB is their currency, like the yuan, so they call it renminbi, RMB. So 1,500 is about almost 200 US dollars a month on
but that's
groceries.
two
And
grown men and
that's for
I'm
the
not
whole month.
small.
Me either.
hold on, because last time I went to the grocery store, it was like $200 for one
Oh
No,
trip.
no.
So,
How often do you go grocery shopping?
now, granted, I don't go that,
no,
but that wasn't even for that
we go
many
to places
things.
like because
Like
we buy in
inflation is
bulk.
crazy here.
We got two
Yeah, because
shopping
we kind
carts.
of
It's kind
buy
of
like I
embarrassing. It's
grew up
like
in
we
the
got food
country and I have a
stamps.
lot of siblings, so I buy in bulk. And so doing my research, I
Right.
found what they consider almost like a Costco because they got Sam's Clubs there. They got say
It's
like
called
that's what another thing. China got everything America got plus more. Like every store you could think of and every brand, they all got it there. Like we had a Walmart across the, like right down the
Mm,
street. There's Walmarts everywhere. There's Sam's Clubs everywhere. There's
there's Walmarts
Costco's.
everywhere here.
There's
There's
Starbucks, Taco
Starbucks
Bell,
everywhere in
everything you
Asia.
think of, they
Starbucks
got.
is
It's
winning,
not
by the
like
way.
it's not that different.
hmm
But
McDonald's.
anyway, your cost of living.
But like we like
Go ahead, Jason.
T could cook. T could cook. I can cook, and we would cook. That like you'll save more money if you cook. So cost of living is relatively. I'm not even gonna say cheap because we're in a tier one city. So like there's like four tiers. We're at the top. We're in Shenzhen. Shenzhen is a tier one city. So it's like it's
So
affordable. I wouldn't
no,
call Shenzhen
Shenzhen is one
cheap.
of the
It's
most expensive
affordable.
city in China, but for us, an American, it's still cheap. Does that make sense? Like, cause like, oh, go back to what you were saying
So
about the price of the living. It's different for everybody. So you can ball out and get like these luxury apartments, and some luxury apartments are just the same amount as in America, like $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. And then you get people could be getting maid service, they get everything delivered, so they be living this luxury life because they got a
Hmm.
disposable income now, and so they go broke. You meet a lot of teachers who make a ton of money going broke because
Yes.
another thing about China is so convenient. You can literally order anything on your phone and have it delivered within an hour. And people be going
Yes. It's something
Meituan and
called
you got
Meituan.
Taobao. People go crazy. Like they just be buying and buying and buying and buying. And then I'm just
You can just
that's just food, Jay.
buy.
Still fat, but
You can. Well,
anything.
Meituan. That's what he's talking about. The hour though. Like I like to eat. So if you like to eat, you can just
yeah,
order
and
you some food. Blah blah
and
blah. But and there's like Alibaba. You can buy in stock. Taobao. You can buy things. If you want some. I have so many sneakers and clothes and gadgets here, like headphones and stuff.
so it's cheap.
They make everything in China. Everything is made here. Everything is made here.
So okay, all right. So I just want to let's look at this. So I already heard that food. Y'all said $200 a month. That got y'all
Yeah.
good. Two grown men eating good. Shopping carts full with an S for $200 a
Yeah.
month. Then I heard you say
Yeah, so
$30 for
Jason and
like
our
your
apartment.
electricity and stuff
Yeah,
like
our
that. Like,
apartment
just
was
looking
six
at
hundred
you
dollars a
all's
month, and we
numbers.
split that, so $300 a piece. It was 3 bedrooms, 2 bathroom with a pool, a gym, and all that shit, all that good stuff. Security, and
Yeah.
it was a gated community. We had they called them gardens, and yeah, it was. Is it bougie? Yeah, and everybody's like, that's so expensive. Well, I mean,
But that in China, that could be expensive
you
in
pay six
China.
hundred
You
dollars a
pay
month.
that
That's
much for your
expensive.
apartment,
Well, I mean,
but compared to how much we get paid versus the average Chinese person, okay, the average Chinese person, let's say they make like $1,000 or $1,200 a month in Shenzhen. But a foreigner is getting 3 to 4 times more than that because not just because we're foreign, but because of the job we do. Teaching might be like whatever job in America, but in China it's held at high regard. If you are a teacher, as a Chinese person, you had to go to school. Not everyone gets to go to college here. Colleges are expensive, and you have to take a really
mhm.
difficult test to get into school here. Everyone does, and there's so much competition here. So you getting accepted to a college, a university, graduating, and then you will be placed in a school, and you have to get all these certifications, take all these tests as a teacher.
Yeah.
You're held in high regard in China. Being you get like doctors. Teacher T was saying how doctors and lawyers don't get paid that much here. It's because Chinese people culturally, if they have a dispute, they would much rather handle it
Mhm.
outside of court rather than inside of court. And they have a lot of home remedies that they've created over thousands of years that they can cure these sicknesses and not go to a hospital and pay all this money.
And another
So it's just like,
and and
but
another thing
teaching,
about living like teaching. So we got like you said, we had $600 a month for rent. We had about $30 for it was less than $30. It was only $30 in the wintertime when we had to, you know, uh had the heat on,
the
but
heat
it didn't
on.
really get where we lived, it didn't really get cold. 60 like it would get like 65 degrees, and that's the winter where we live because we live in southern China. Um, but normally it's like
The metro was like
water.
15 US
We'll
dollars for a
like
month, like 100
our
RMB.
internet. Did you already say internet?
No, internet was also like a good 200, like a good like
Yeah, it was like
$30
yeah, it was about 200
for
something
internet and for a
RMB. So
month.
that's like 25 $30. So total, it was like about $500 a piece. So I like for a month, and I'm making
Right.
no, I'll say this average about $1,000. About it depends on how you live. You add about 1,000.
Between
Yeah, if you
between the
add
two of us.
about for everything, it's about $1,000 a month.
So if there is a
Okay, so
price,
okay, in
can you
like
still
grocery, like
If
negotiate,
you're
or
in a
mainly
only
like
if
in
it's
store,
like
not a
grocery
price?
stores
no.
and stuff, no. But if you go to like a market, everything in the market is
On the
negotiable. If
street.
you don't, they kind
Gotcha.
of get offended that you don't like haggle
So,
back with them. It's like part of their culture. And
hmm
so growing up, my
yeah.
parents owned my mom owned a beauty supply store, and we used to go to Chinese markets to buy all of the supplies. And so I learned from them, like watching now, I'm like, damn, why she yelling at that man? But it's just part of what you do. So when I went to China and went to this market, I was like, oh, I know how to do this. Like I was, you know, and so everybody's like, T, why are you so aggressive?
Even if they quote you a price, even if they quote you a price, you can still be like, well, I can get this for less over
And they be
there.
like,
Let
hold
me
up,
take
hold
my
up, hold up,
money
hold up.
over
So what we
there.
talking
Wait,
about?
no,
What we
okay,
doing
let's
here?
negotiate.
Like,
Let's negotiate. All right. 'Cause-
So
no,
so you all both are
no,
now
I
fluent in
am.
Chinese.
no. I can get what I need.
No. You are. You're not
I
yet.
took a different
So
route.
how
I
was
hired
that?
a tutor for 6 months. Like my second year in China, I hired a tutor. So the first
Okay.
year, our job, they supplied us with classes, like learning the phonics part. It's called pinyin. So learning like the tones and like the characters and how people say things and understanding. And I did research about the language. Like I studied language in college. Like I can speak a couple languages now, but and I can also understand dialects in Chinese. But then I hired a tutor to like help solidify my understanding of Chinese, and like he like forced me to go out there into the community and talk to people. So I can speak Chinese. Wherever we went on a so that year we went on a tour around China. We went to like 7 different cities in China. We went to Chongqing, we went to Chengdu, we went to Xi'an, we went to Beijing, Shanghai, and different places in between. And they speak differently. They speak Chinese differently in these different places. So Shenzhen is in Canton. Like if you're Cantonese, they speak Cantonese in this region of China, but it's not the same as Mandarin. It's a totally different language. But in Shenzhen, most people come from different parts of China into Shenzhen for work. So people bring their languages and their food with them. So most people in China speak Mandarin. I chose to speak Mandarin because that's like, the overall language in China. But if you go to Chengdu, they speak it differently in Chengdu. If they go to Beijing, they speak Chinese
Well,
differently in Beijing.
yeah,
You can
and
understand it
me,
though. T has a really good
I can
understanding of
understand.
Chinese. Like if
I
he
can
can hear a
understand better than I can
conversation.
speak because I can't get the tones down. Like I'm like, I know I'm saying this word right, just like it ain't the right tone. You know what? I ain't got time for all that. Like I know the word.
So when he talks about the tone, when T talks about the tone, if you have the same word that sounds the same, but the tone is different, it's a different word. So I'll
It
give you a
completely.
really really easy
Gotcha.
example.
Gotcha.
The word for 15 in Chinese is 十五, but the word for food is 十五.
Don't it sound the same to you?
Totally different characters.
Okay. So
It's not. But if you have a trained ear, I'm not tone deaf. If you have a trained ear,
I hear
if
it
you have it's a slight
slightly.
difference. But for Chinese people, if you say the wrong
Yeah, and
tone,
I'll
they're
be
like,
like
"What?
he said, I'm like, sure. Well, they like,
Shema?
what? I'm like, I
What?
know I said this word right,
What?
and he was like, it ain't the right
What?"
tone. It's the word
But they
though.
don't when. But it's been great. I love speaking Chinese because it opened me up to different possibilities. Like I can
And
have
they appreciate
conversations
it
with
more.
people.
They
You
appreciate it
know,
more.
they love you more, and they're willing to help you because the first way, if you ask for help in China, and no one speaks English here, mind you, if you ask for help in China and you don't speak Chinese, they won't help you. Not because they don't want to,
And see, that
but they
was.
can't communicate, so there's no way they can help you. They're not going to waste your time or theirs.
And see, that was my next question, because I was gonna ask, like, if you don't know any Chinese, like, how was that navigating? Like when y'all first got over
I
there, how was
Well,
navigating?
I wrote these cards down. I had cards, and like just the basics. You should, if you're gonna come to China, learn your numbers. Those are universal. learn directions, learn colors. Like those are all things you can learn easily, and then it just grows. You just have to get your mind makes a shift, like like your mental makes a shift. Your brain is hearing things. It's not, oh, I'm not hearing English anymore, so I'm gonna start to learn and change. Your brain is constantly changing. People don't realize that, but if you allow yourself to accept that you're not in America and then you can't necessarily control that, you can't control your environment, you have to change. You have to be willing to change. A lot of people are afraid of change. You shouldn't be. It's a part of growing up. And that's what I've learned, is that you need to be able to be marketable and change with your environment. White people don't like doing that. They never have to do that. They change the environment to fit their needs. So it's like, that's just how it is.
Gotcha.
It's okay. Learning Chinese
Well,
has
thank
been
you
really
all
useful.
so much for coming on the show today. This was so helpful because I know there's other people out there that want, like you all, when you first started, you're like, okay, I want to travel, but I want to travel for free. Or, there's people that's thinking about these things, right? And so this just opens up a new opportunity for some people that may have a degree already and they're like, I'm tired of corporate America, or I'm tired of teaching in America. What else can I do? So I appreciate you all coming on, and I know the time difference is there too, so I appreciate you taking the time to do this. So before we wrap up, and I'll probably have y'all back on because I'm sure after this episode releases I'll get a flood of questions because I still have questions. If anybody wanted to get in touch with you all, if you all want to,
they can find
where
me
could
on
they find
Instagram.
you?
Everybody screams the number 4 Jason, so everybody screams for Jason. And for T, it's the same thing, but like T Jones on T Jones 85. But you can definitely contact me. I'm on Facebook as well, Jason the Goat. So you can definitely find me there. But yeah, it's been really great. Definitely contact me. And this is definitely possible. That's another reason, I don't see too many people who look like us doing this. You can do it. You guys can do it. Do it. I'm doing it. And I'm not perfect. I'm nothing. I'm special, but you can be special too. Come out here and do it. It's definitely a possibility.
Yes. So I'm so proud of y'all, and thank you so much for inspiring someone else on this journey. And I appreciate you just coming on the show today.
Thank you for listening, joining, and being a part of the Money Talk with Tiff podcast this week. You can check Tiff out every Thursday for a new Money Talk podcast. But if you just can't wait until next week, you can listen to previous podcast episodes at moneytalkwitht.com or follow Tiff on all social media platforms at Money Talk with T. Until next time, spend wise by spending less than you make. A word to the money wise is always sufficient.